Trump is supposedly planning a trip out to Michigan next week, you will not hear him mirror any of the demands that the UAW is making. You're going to hear him attack Joe Biden and tell auto workers to vote for him. That's the whole thing for him.
So we've basically gone on the Republican side from the most anti-UAW stance in this strike to like clearly anti, but not going out and saying that, you know, the big three should fire these people and permanently
not necessarily committing an unfair labor practice.
Yeah, not committing, not literally breaking the law. So that's where Nikki Haley was. And then this one, this next one on the Republican side, on the right wing kind of conservative side in the reaction to the strike, is a veneer of support. But as Adam Johnson, I think a host of citations needed, rightly pointed out in the Real News Network, they're supporting a strike that does not exist. They are, here's from that article that Adam Johnson wrote in the Real News Network. All of them, quote, support it, unquote, as an abstract thing in their head, yet they are throwing their backing behind a version of the strike that doesn't exist, and they offer no support for the actual demands of the strikers or the duly elected representatives of the UAW membership. What they're doing is pulling it away from a class war, a class struggle kind of rhetoric where Shawn Fain has been calling out the billionaire class that Donald Trump is a part of as the problem, where Shawn Fain has been saying, you know, a very clear list of demands. These right-wingers are saying, I support the auto workers. Notice they're not saying union. They can't bring themselves to say union. I support the auto workers in their fight against Joe Biden, which is absolutely not what's happening. Here's what Rubio said in a tweet, quote, auto strike is driven in large part by a radical climate agenda that seeks the end of gas-powered cars, even if it means destroying American jobs. Instead of supporting either union bosses or CEOs, we need to support. And notice how he says CEOs, because that's like a nice word for these people. They think CEO, they think, oh, that's cool. But union bosses for the duly elected representatives of millions of working people. Union bosses.
Right.
We need to support American workers who want policies that protect their jobs, value the dignity of their work, reduce their cost of living, and increases their pay. Okay, so all of those things obviously good, but not tying it to anything real and not acknowledging the reality of the struggle between the workers and the owners. The owners who are taking all of the value of the increased profitability over the last several decades, and the workers who are creating that value.
Hey, 5 seconds. Just wanted to say that this is only possible because of our donors. If you want to see more of this, then consider donating yourself at tvlr.fm/donate.
That's the struggle that exists. That's the struggle that Rubio refuses to acknowledge. Holly does a similar thing. Auto workers deserve a raise. How much? Who knows? A 20% raise is technically a raise. Is that enough for Josh Hawley? He doesn't say. Auto workers deserve a raise, and they deserve to have their jobs protected from Joe Biden's stupid climate mandates that are destroying the U.S. auto industry and making China rich. And that is not the struggle here. The struggle is against the big three automakers who are refusing to pay the workers a fair share of the value that they're creating. Further, even to the extent that there is conflict between the EV provisions that Joe Biden is pushing and the United Auto Workers, that conflict is very easily resolved not by ditching the climate mandates, but by tying strong pro-labor strings to them, like affirmative union neutrality agreements.
Absolutely.
Like higher wage protections, like just straight up benefits for unionized workers, benefits for pension packages, benefits for better training, all of this kind of stuff. You could actually tie it tangibly to the climate goals, and then it is no longer in conflict at all with the UAW. Johnson points out in the article, Hawley doesn't actually support unions, i.e. the tangible worker-composed organizations that exist in reality right now fighting for material improvements for the very workers Hawley claims to sympathize with. He only supports an idealized hard hat wearing archetype that exists as a branding reference. Hawley continues with vague demands for a, quote, raise and, quote, better hours, unquote, but no specific numbers are mentioned. No mention of the 36% hike the union is demanding, which would commensurate with the raises of the big three executives have given themselves since the last contracts negotiated, a demand that accounts for skyrocketing auto industry profits, inflation, and rising costs of living, and the cuts and concessions the union suffered to keep the industry afloat during the Great Recession. The big three have all technically offered, quote, raises that are still well below the UAW's demands, and these meager wage increases would seemingly satisfy Hawley's squishy line about workers deserving a raise. Hawley's keeping everything deliberately vague because he doesn't want to upset the automakers that donate to his super PAC. And he, after all, has a shtick to maintain. And so, that's kind of the thing. And Trump is doing the exact same thing. We played a clip for y'all a couple of weeks ago of Trump lambasting Biden and actually attacking the UAW leadership, not supporting their demands, not being specific about anything. And he is supposedly planning a trip out to Michigan next week. I don't know if he's going to be on a picket line. I know that my understanding is the UAW is not cooperating with him at all in his visit. And it's just, he's going to go. And if he does visit and if he does speak, here's another thing that I would be willing to bet. You will not hear him mirror any of the demands that the UAW is making. You're going to hear him say platitudes and attack Joe Biden and tell auto workers to vote for him. That's the whole thing for him. And that is, I think, it is good for unions to have a transactional relationship with politicians, okay? I think that we should absolutely be willing to use politicians for our ends and then allow politicians to use their support of us for their ends, as long as it is sincere and it's real and there's something meaningful coming out of it, okay? And for example, Jeff Sessions spoke at a rally to save TVA jobs, about 100 TVA jobs, including about 40 here in Huntsville, that were planning that the CEO of TVA at the time, Jeff Lyash, wanted to outsource. The union was able to get Jeff Sessions on board fighting against the outsourcing, and he spoke at a rally. Okay? And so we were willing. He was willing to be used by the union, and the union was willing to be used by him as a sort of, like, oh, look at me, I'm supporting the workers. Because he actually mirrored and spoke in favor of the demands that the union was asking for, which was that the jobs not be outsourced. That is not what Trump or Rubio or Hawley are doing right now. They are being vague, they are not being specific, and in the same breath, they are attacking the union. That's not what Jeff Sessions did. Transactional relationships are fine and good with politicians, but they actually have to be meaningful transactions.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.